Welcome back to Obsidian Quill Publishing, and thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy dark, immersive stories of cryptids, the unexplained, and the horrors that wait beyond the tree line, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Every click helps this channel grow, and helps these stories reach the people brave enough to hear them. The woods can be beautiful. They can also be deadly. As one man discovered, being in the wrong place at the wrong time can fracture a life beyond repair, driving a quiet, ordinary man to limits no one would expect, and into a hunt that would cost him everything. This is not a legend. This is not a warning that came in time. This is the story of obsession, loss, and what happens when grief follows something ancient back into the dark. This is I Tracked the Thing That Killed My Wife.
I need to say this clearly so nobody can twist it later. My name is Jesse Phillips. Bigfoot is real. Yeti is real. Dogmen, skinwalkers, all of it. I'm not drunk. I'm not high. I'm not confused. I know exactly what I'm saying. I know they're real because one of them is outside my house right now. Listen. That sound you hear, that's it. It killed my wife 4 years ago. The police said bear accident, they were wrong. Today it killed my dog. Wow, a 150-pound cane corso. The only thing that ever stood between me and it. And now it's here for me. If anyone finds this recording, if anyone hears my voice, don't come looking for me. I'm not trapped in here by it. It's trapped out there by me. You see, 4 years ago, my wife Stephanie, my wife of 20 years, was killed in front of me. We had gone on a wine tasting trip. We drank more than we should have because we were celebrating. The kids were grown. The house was paid off. For the first time in our adult lives, there was no schedule, no pressure, just us. We rented a room at a quiet bed and breakfast. The host suggested a nature walk nearby. Easy paths, they said, peaceful. It was late afternoon when we started. The light was soft, golden. Stephanie was laughing, a little unsteady from the wine, holding my arm as we walked. When we stepped off the marked path, it didn't feel dangerous. It felt intimate, private. That was our first mistake. The woods changed almost immediately, not all at once, just subtly enough that I didn't register it right away. The air thickened. The breeze stopped. Leaves stood perfectly still. Then the birds went silent, not faded, not distant, gone. Stephanie slowed and leaned against a tree, catching her breath. The sun was setting behind her, lighting her face from the side, her cheekbones glowing, her eyes warm, her hair rimmed with gold. I remember thinking how beautiful she looked, how unfair it was that the world let moments like that slip away unnoticed. I was lost in her. That's why I didn't hear the sound behind us, a wet, heavy sound, like weight shifting on bark. Stephanie's smile vanished. Her eyes flicked past me. Then something grabbed her, not me, grabbed. She didn't even have time to scream before she was lifted off the ground like she weighed nothing. The thing stepped out of the trees, and my brain refused to make sense of it. It was huge, at least 7 feet tall, maybe more, covered in matted reddish-brown fur darkened with sap and dirt. Its arms were wrong, too long, too muscular, stretching past its knees. The shoulders rolled like something built to tear. Its head came to a blunt cone, the skull sloping back unnaturally, and its face, God, its eyes were red, not glowing, not reflective, alive, intelligent, focused. It roared, and the sound hit my chest like a physical blow, deep, wet, violent. When it opened its mouth, I saw rows of jagged teeth, broken, uneven, meant for crushing, set inside an ape-like jaw that stretched far wider than it should have. Stephanie screamed then. The sound cut off abruptly. The creature bent forward and bit her face off. Not tore, not ripped, bit. Her entire face disappeared into its mouth in a single horrifying motion. There was a wet crunch. Bone snapped. Blood sprayed across its muzzle and fur, steaming slightly in the cooling air. Her body convulsed once. Just once. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My legs wouldn't listen to me. The thing swung its arm, casually, like swatting an insect, and hit me. I remember the sensation of flying without moving my feet. The world spun. My head slammed into the ground. I wish I could tell you I did something, but the truth is, I couldn't move. I couldn't even scream. All I could do was watch. The monster had Stephanie pinned in the dirt, its massive shoulders rising and falling with each breath. Its jaws worked methodically, chewing, tearing, swallowing, like it was savoring every piece of her. That sound, God, that sound will follow me into the grave. Wet, deliberate chewing, like it knew I was listening and wanted me to hear. Stephanie's leg twitched. I felt myself slipping, my heartbeat slowing, the edges of reality softening. The last thing I saw was its head lifting, glowing eyes locking onto mine while blood dripped from it, just darkness swallowing me whole as I passed out, helpless, useless, while the monster finished what it had started. When I came to, the light was almost gone. The woods were alive again, birds, insects, and the smell of blood and copper. Stephanie was... There weren't words for what was left. Pieces, torn cloth, wet earth pressed into things that had once been her. There wasn't enough of her to save, barely enough to identify. The thing didn't rush. It didn't need to. It had taken everything from me in under 4 minutes. I cremated what was left of her. There wasn't much to gather. The funeral director tried to be gentle, kept his voice calm and professional, like tone alone could soften what sat in that small metal tray. I signed forms I barely remember filling out. I nodded when spoken to. I carried her home in a container light enough to feel like an insult. I grieved the way men like me grieve, quietly, badly, alone. A week later, 7 days since I watched the monster tear my wife apart. A week since the world lost its color. The doorbell rang. Of all days, it had to be today. My birthday. I didn't need a calendar to remind me. My bones remembered. My heartbeat remembered. Grief lives in the body long after the mind tries to get quiet. I was standing in the kitchen, staring at the same empty mug I hadn't touched since before, when the chime hit me like a gunshot. Outside, a delivery truck idled, coughing exhaust into the morning air. The driver held out a clipboard, said he had 2 deliveries, needed a signature. I could barely make my hand work. The first was a big wooden crate, air holes drilled on the sides, something shifting inside, scraping like it wanted out. The second was a long rectangular box, and an envelope taped to it. I didn't have to open it to know the handwriting. Steph had a way of making every letter look like she was smiling when she wrote it. My hands shook so hard I had to brace myself against the doorway just to slide my thumb beneath the flap. Jessie, you talk about hunting like it scares you and excites you at the same time. You'll never be alone if you keep a good dog with you. This is Deuce. He'll always be loyal, Happy hunting. Steph P.S. I'm not cleaning any poop. I laughed. Or, something came out of me that wanted to be a laugh, but it cracked, sharp and hollow, like broken glass hitting tile. Halfway through, my chest gave out, and I folded right there on the porch, the letter crushed in my fist. My breath rattled like it didn't know whether to keep going. The driver stared at his phone, pretending not to see a man unraveling, but I stood up. I signed. I owed her that much. When he finally drove off, the crate door swung open with a long, aching creak, and out tumbled the biggest, blackest Cane Corso puppy I had ever seen. All oversized paws, loose skin, and clumsy bravado. He blinked at the daylight like it offended him, took 2 steps forward, and immediately panicked, backed up into the corner of the porch, and pissed all over the welcome mat Steph picked out 2 summers ago. I sank down beside him and started crying for real. No dignity, no restraint, just grief ripping its way out of me in sobs I didn't recognize as mine. The puppy trembled, then pressed his massive head against my chest, as if he'd already chosen me, as if Steph had whispered to him in whatever place good souls wait. I held him, laughing through tears, because she would have loved this. She would have teased me for crying. She would have kissed the top of his dumb puppy head and claimed she wasn't cleaning anything. When the house finally went quiet again, I opened the long box. Inside was a Remington hunting rifle, clean, oiled, already sighted in. She bought it before that night. She planned it. She planned for me to live. I didn't keep the name Deuce. Didn't feel right without her saying it, but she told me he'd will always be loyal, so WAL became his name, Wall, my shadow, my last gift from her. Over the next year, everything in my life narrowed to a single purpose. I prepared. I lived at the gun range until the staff knew me by name and flinched when they saw me coming. I burned through ammunition like it was oxygen, forcing my hands to stop shaking, forcing my aim to steady. I trained until the recoil felt like a handshake, until putting a bullet exactly where I wanted it to go became second nature. And Wall became something else entirely. Every morning before the sun rose, I trained him to move silently. No broken twigs, no rustling brush, no growls unless I commanded it. A whole year of drills, of repetition, of hand signals and whispered cues, day after day, until the 2 of us stopped thinking separately. We became one mind moving through the forest. He grew fast, too fast, lean muscles stacked onto his frame until he was a sleek black shadow, pushing 100 pounds, his fur shining like wet obsidian, his eyes sharp and aware of everything. When he stood beside me in the woods, he looked like a creature carved from violence and purpose, intimidating enough to make anyone take a step back. And yet, in the yard, he was still that clumsy puppy who used to stumble over his own paws, still the fool who'd trip himself chasing a ball, still the little monster who chewed my old work shoe until it looked like a crime scene. With me, WAL was gentle as a lamb, like Steph used to say. But the moment we stepped beneath the trees, he became something else, a hunter, a partner, my last tether to sanity. That year, I signed the house over to my kids, told them I needed a change of scenery, told them I needed time. I didn't tell them the truth, not because I wanted to spare them, but because they would have tried to stop me. And nothing on this earth was going to stop me, not after what that thing took. So Dawal and I loaded the truck, left everything familiar behind, and drove straight toward the woods, the same woods where my wife died, where I lost the life I knew, where that monster walked free. I bought a small cabin close to the attack site, old, isolated, tucked deep enough into the trees that nobody would hear gunshots or screams. And then, Wall and I began the hunt. Not a search, not a hope, a hunt, because somewhere out there, that creature still breathed, and I intended to be the one who stopped it. Wall and I spent weeks moving through the woods like ghosts, slow, methodical, patient. We searched for tracks, broken branches, disturbed earth, anything that didn't belong. Most days we found nothing worth keeping. False trails, old sign, nothing fresh. Then winter came creeping in. We went into the general store for supplies, ammo, propane, dry goods. The place smelled like coffee, motor oil, and old wood. A couple of locals were talking near the counter, their voices blending into the background. I didn't listen. I'd learned to tune people out, until I heard one word, monster. That snapped me back. One of the men was shaking his head, voice low but urgent. He said Stockton had lost his prize pig. Nearly 400 pounds, gone in seconds. I kept my face neutral, let them keep talking. Stockton had seen it, he said. Watched the thing grab that pig like it weighed nothing, picked it up like a football and took off running. Stockton chased after it, stupid with panic and disbelief, until it vanished into thick brush. That's when the sound started, the squealing, then the cracking, then chewing, wet, slow, deliberate. The man said Stockton froze, said whatever was tearing that pig apart was enjoying it and might decide it wanted dessert. That's when Stockton ran back to his house and locked the door. I stepped in then, asked casually where Stockton's farm was, like I was just another curious local. They pointed me in the right direction. WAL and I didn't waste a minute. The farm sat at the edge of the tree line, mud torn up, fencing smashed like it had been kicked aside. And there, right near the pig pen, I saw them, the tracks, 15 inches long, pressed 2 inches deep into hard-packed ground, like the earth itself had given way under the weight. No animal did that. Not bears, not moose, not anything that belonged here. This thing was massive. Stockton came out to meet me, pale and shaken. He told me what he saw. Brownish red and black fur, claws that looked like hooked knives, teeth, sharp, serrated, built for tearing, and tall. Too tall. 10 feet, he said quietly. At least. I stood there staring at those tracks, my heart pounding, not with fear, but with certainty. It was bigger, much bigger than I'd imagined. Standing there, staring at those tracks, I felt my plan unravel in real time. Everything I'd prepared for, every calculation, every drill, every late night at the range, suddenly felt inadequate. This wasn't just a creature that had grown, it had evolved. I stood in silence, turning that truth over in my head, already rethinking my strategy, when Stockton started talking again. He rambled the way shaken men do, about local wildlife, seasonal movements, bears pushing higher into the mountains once the cold set in. His words washed over me. Then the forest screamed. A long wailing roar rolled through the trees, deep and powerful, vibrating in my chest like thunder trapped underground. Birds exploded out of the canopy. Wall stiffened instantly, ears flat, a low sound rumbling in his throat that I'd never heard before. Stockton went pale. "That's it," he said quietly. He didn't need to explain. That means it's heading up into the mountains, he went on. Once it does, it won't come back down till spring. The roar echoed again, farther away now, but no less terrifying. Stockton shook his head, trying to convince himself as much as me. I'm putting up an electric fence. Maybe that'll keep it out. I didn't answer, because fences don't stop things that can carry a 400-pound animal like a toy. As the sound faded into the distance, one truth settled heavy in my gut. I hadn't lost my chance. I'd just been given time. Wall and I went home. The drive back felt longer than it should have. No radio, no distractions, just the road unwinding in front of us, and the certainty that whatever I thought I was hunting no longer existed. That thing had grown beyond my original plan. I had to change everything for Stephanie. Back at the cabin, I sat down at the computer and started searching. Not myths, not legends, not stories meant to scare people. Traps, heavy caliber ammunition, big game hunting tactics. I read about bear traps strong enough to snap bone, about pit traps, deadfalls, cable snares reinforced with aircraft wire. I studied shot placement on animals that didn't die easily, moose, bison, things that could absorb punishment and keep moving. I compared rounds, penetration, stopping power, bone breakage. Whale stayed at my feet the whole time, silent, watchful, like he knew every keystroke mattered, like he understood this wasn't curiosity anymore, it was preparation. Day after day, night after night, the pattern repeated. Before dawn, I'd take my coffee outside and walk the edge of the property. I studied the ground the way hunters do, looking for choke points, natural funnels, places where something big would have to slow down. I measured distances in my head, thought about wind, thought about angles. I pictured it stepping out of the trees. I pictured where I'd want it to stand. I didn't rush. Rushing gets people killed. This wasn't about courage. It wasn't about anger. It was about planning something so carefully that when the moment came, there would be no hesitation. No mistakes. Winter came down hard. For 3 months, the forest disappeared under deep snow, the cold pressing in from every direction. WAL and I stayed put and prepared. We trained, we waited, we sharpened everything that mattered. When the thaw finally hit, Stockton made good on his promise. He ran an electric fence along his property line, thick wire, loud hum, bright warning signs. It wasn't going to keep that thing out, but it would irritate it, and irritation was exactly what I needed. I spent money without thinking about it, stockpiling supplies piece by piece. Ammunition, tools, fuel. One item mattered more than the rest: deer pheromone. I sprayed a trail that started near Stockton's fence and wound its way through the trees toward my cabin. Long, slow arcs across the forest floor. If the deer followed it, I knew the creature would too. I closed off the nearby hiking trails, illegally, posted signs, dragged fallen timber across access points. I couldn't afford civilians wandering into what I was setting up, not now. It took 3 weeks after the thaw for the deer to grow comfortable feeding near my property. 3 weeks of watching tracks multiply. 3 weeks of silence growing heavier by the day. Then one morning, Wall stopped dead at the edge of the tree line. That's when I knew. Something had noticed the smorgasbord. Branches were bent the wrong way. Tracks overlapped older ones, deeper, heavier. The kind that didn't hesitate or circle. The kind that moved with purpose. The fence would annoy it. The deer would lure it, and the trail would bring it straight to me. The bait was set, I had a trail. At first light, I armed myself like a man going to war. I loaded the rifle, feeling the solid weight settle into my shoulder. I checked the .357 Magnum at my hip, thumb brushing the grip the way you do when you need reassurance. Then I looked at the dynamite, 3 sticks, wired tight, crude and unforgiving. I remember thinking how unreal it was, what you could buy online if you didn't ask questions. If it was nesting in a cave, I wasn't going to flesh it out. I was going to bury it alive. Wall and I moved out as the fog lifted. The trail was impossible to miss. Branches were snapped clean off nearly 7 feet above the ground, like something had walked through upright and angry. Tree trunks were gouged deep with claw marks, and the blood, thick, dark, still wet in places, dragged through the brush in long streaks, clotted with hair and bits of flesh from the deer. The smell hit next: copper, rot, warm meat. When we reached a clearing, I stopped short. The forest opened up unnaturally, like something had pressed down on it for years. The trail vanished for a moment, smeared and confused. Wall lowered his head, nostrils flaring. Then his body went rigid. He turned sharply and moved off. We followed the scent another mile, deeper into the woods, closer to the mountain where the light didn't seem to reach properly. The air grew colder, still. Even the insects were gone. Then Wall froze. His hackles rose slowly, every hair standing on end. A low, broken sound crept out of his throat, not a growl, a warning. We were close. I crouched and raised the binoculars, sweeping the shadows inch by inch. My pulse hammered in my ears. For a moment I thought I was wrong. Then I saw it. A nest, not natural, not animal. Saplings snapped and woven together. Tree limbs stacked like ribs. Bones, deer, livestock, things I didn't want to look at too closely, littered the edges, and inside it, bodies, huge, fur-matted, breathing slow and deep. Their chests rose and fell like bellows. One twitched in its sleep, teeth clicking softly as if dreaming of the hunt. One stood apart, watching, guarding. Its red eyes swept the forest with a dull intelligence. Something inside me went cold. Good, I thought. All of you in one place. I brought the rifle up, steadying my breathing. The crosshairs slid over matted fur and muscle until they settled on the guard's eye. I fired. The bullet punched through the eye socket and out the back of its skull in a wet explosion. The scream that followed wasn't pain. It was shock, rage, and terror rolled into one sound. It echoed off the mountain, ripping birds from the trees and waking everything that slept. The forest erupted. Creatures roared and scrambled, crashing into one another. Limbs snapped, dirt flew, and then I saw him, the biggest one, the one that killed Stephanie. It rose from the nest like a nightmare unfolding, towering over the others, its fur streaked with old blood and fresh filth. Its red eyes burned as it shoved the others aside, searching, hunting. Then it saw me. Saw Wall. We ran. Branches tore at my face and arms as we sprinted downhill. Wall stayed tight at my side, breath ragged, paws pounding the earth. Behind us, the forest exploded with pursuit. 4 of them, massive, furious, tearing through trees like they weren't even there. The ground shook with their charge. Just a little farther. The explosion came like the end of the world. The dynamite detonated behind us with a thunderous roar. The shock wave punched the air from my lungs. Dirt, splintered wood, and pieces of flesh rained down. I stumbled, turned, and watched the clearing vanish in fire, smoke, and gore. I was 500 yards away when I saw him again. The big one stood at the edge of the destruction, framed by smoke and burning debris. Blood streaked its fur. It threw its head back and roared, a sound so full of fury it made my knees weak. Then it lowered its head and stared straight at me. Not blindly, knowingly, I had wiped out its family. Its eyes promised retribution. And when it started toward me, moving faster than anything that size should, one thought cut through the terror like a blade. Good, let it come. The ground began to shake. Not metaphorically, literally. I felt the rumble through my boots, through my bones, like something massive was tearing the earth apart behind me. It was gaining ground, fast. I could hear it breathing now, wet, forceful bursts of air that sounded too close, like it was running just out of sight. From the corner of my vision, I caught flashes of movement, trees exploding apart, dense brush crushed flat as it paralleled me with terrifying ease. It wasn't chasing blindly, it was pacing me. I dodged rocks and fallen logs as they came flying out of the dark, ripped from the ground and hurled in blind fury. One slammed into a tree beside me, splintering bark inches from my head. Another thudded into the dirt so hard it shook my footing. Wall stayed with me, tight to my side, never pulling ahead, never falling back. His breath was ragged, but he didn't slow, didn't abandon me. Not even when fear thickened the air like smoke. Then I lost sight of it. That scared me more than seeing it. Wall didn't slow, didn't hesitate. His nose snapped upward, tracking something that wasn't on the ground anymore. It was above me. Branches creaked overhead. Something heavy shifted through the canopy, moving faster than I could run, silent now, deliberate, hunting. My hands shook as I drew the .357. I fired wildly into the trees, the muzzle flashes lighting up leaves and bark in sharp bursts. I wasn't aiming. I just needed noise, needed it to hesitate, needed it to think twice about dropping on me the way it had dropped on the deer. The gunshots echoed uselessly into the dark. Then it landed. It dropped out of the trees 20 feet in front of me, hitting the ground hard enough to send dirt and leaves exploding into the air. The impact knocked the breath out of my lungs. I skidded to a stop, heart slamming against my ribs. It rose slowly, towering, fur matted and streaked with blood, chest heaving, its red eyes locked onto mine with something far worse than rage. Understanding, it had cut me off. Wall charged. I shouted his name, screamed for him to come back, but he was already moving. Low, fast, fearless, closing the distance before I could take a second step. He went for the throat the way I'd trained him, jaws snapping, aiming for the jugular. He never got the chance. The creature swatted him out of the air like he weighed nothing. Wall hit the ground hard, tumbling end over end, and I barely had time to register the sound of his body before the thing was on me. It grabbed me by the chest and lifted me clear off the ground. The impact knocked the gun from my hand. My feet kicked uselessly in the air as its grip tightened. Its jaws opened. Up close, the smell was unbearable. Rotting meat and blood and something ancient. The serrated teeth glistened as it drew me closer, its breath hot against my face. I knew. This was how it ended. Then it screamed. Wall came down on its back like a black missile, teeth sinking deep into the thick muscle of its neck. The creature roared in pain and fury, thrashing wildly, trying to shake him loose. Wall hung on, growling through blood and spit, buying me seconds I didn't deserve. I hit the ground hard, rolled, and snatched up the revolver. The creature slammed itself backward into a tree, crushing WAL between its body and the trunk. I heard the yelp, high, sharp, wrong. I fired. The shots tore into its neck, its arm, its leg. Blood sprayed hot and thick across the forest floor. Wall staggered upright, shaking, barely able to stand. His legs trembled beneath him, his chest heaving. He was hurt, badly. "Come on, boy," I yelled. "Come on!" He didn't move. Instead, he stepped between me and the creature. I saw it then, the decision, the loyalty. "No!" I screamed. "Wall! Come back!" But he charged again. He went for the wounded leg, teeth sinking in, growling with everything he had left. I ran. I didn't want to. I didn't choose to. Seconds later, the forest rang with one final sound, Wall's dying yelp. I didn't turn around. I made it back to the cabin barely breathing, lungs on fire, tears blinding me. The creature dragged itself after me, crippled but relentless, its injured leg leaving a gouged trail through the dirt. This is where my story began. It's outside my door now. The wood is splintering. The hinges are screaming. Every hit shakes the walls. Stephanie didn't die for nothing. Wall didn't die for nothing. I strike the fuse and feel the heat catch. The door finally gives way. The creature fills the room, bleeding, furious, victorious. Its eyes lock onto mine. I don't hesitate. I charge. I leap straight into its claws and teeth, dynamite blazing in my hands. "Die!" I scream. "Die, you bastard! Die!" And then...
Revenge. A 7-letter word. One that can consume you faster than any hairy creature lurking in the forest. Jesse avenged his wife. He avenged his dog, Wall. But revenge never comes without a price. Though his children are grown, they now have no parents. Their children will never know grandparents. Only stories, photographs, and fading memories. The creature died that night, blown to bits. And so did Jesse. Sleep well and keep the lights on. And remember to like, subscribe, and click the bell because it's 2026. And Obsidian Quill Publishing wishes you a happy new year, and even newer tales to keep you entertained. And sleeping with the lights on. Also, be sure to pick up your copy of Blood in Brooklyn. The link is waiting for you below in the comments.